Everybody, welcome back to my YouTube channel. So last week I released a video onto the SQL interview questions, the most commonly asked interview question onto the SQL. So this is a video I'm continuing from that. So I have some more problems here for you guys to practice upon, and I'll be solving these problems. These problems are also onto the advanced and the medium level concepts, where I'll be using different case when statements, join level concepts as well. So don't forget to hit the like button and also subscribe to my channel if you haven't. And till now, if you haven't watched my most common SQL interview question playlist, I have attached the link into the description box of this video. So all the codes, you'll find all the questions which I'll be solving into this video into the description box. If you'll find this video quite informational and useful, so don't forget to hit the like button and also subscribe to my channel if you haven't. Let us quickly get back to our screen and start solving the problems. So let us start solving the very first problem into this particular video. So you can see onto your screen, this is a very hard level problem because you need to understand and apply certain conditions. So you need to apply the logics properly. So let's start and we'll understand this into a lot of more detail. So the problem says, given a table of product subscription with a subscription start date and end date for each user. So into the column 1, you can see the user ID is present. Into the column 2, you can see the start date of the subscription present, and into the column C, you can see the end date of the subscription present. Now we need to write a query that returns true or false whether or not each user has a subscription date range that overlaps with any other user. So basically, each of these users, they have a particular range of subscription, like from this particular date to some particular date, the subscription range is present for each of the users. So we want to get the information about the user, their user IDs, and whether there is an overlap of their subscription with any of the other user or not. So how do we understand and how do we solve this particular problem? So we can solve this problem using a particular logic here. So the logic would lose something like, so let us consider 2 users for now, and the same logic will be applied for every other user. So let us say there is the user U1 and has a start date of the subscription, and there'll be a end date of the subscription for the user as well. So and similarly there is the user U2, and similarly there is a user U2 who will have a start date of the subscription and who will have a end date of the subscription. So I'm just explaining for wherever the subscription date range will match. So let us say the subscription for the user ID as user1, the start date and the end date, and the user ID as user2, the start date and the end date. And you can see there is a overlap here. I'll just color this. So just understand this to be a range of dates present here into the increasing order. So X and Y axis. So this is the X axis and we have the range of the date. So let's say this is something like January, February, March, April, May, June. So in between March and April, there is an overlap between the subscription for the user ID 1 and the user ID is 2. So we need a condition here somehow to identify this overlap. So do you see a particular trend? If you just deep dive here, you can see this trend, which is something like the user 2 end date is always greater than the user 1 start date. Is it there into the overlapping condition or not? It is definitely there, because you can see, if I consider this to be in the increasing order, so you can see June, whatever date we choose in the June month, it will be greater than whatever date we choose into the Feb month. So this will be the very first condition if the matching is there into the subscription date range. Now here we need to apply a second condition, because this will fail multiple times. What if the user ID as to the start date is May? What if this is the case instead of March? In that case, this is also true. But is there a overlap? There is no overlap, because the user ID is 2. This is now starting into the month of May and ending in the month of June. But even then, this condition is true where the end date is greater than the start date. So this is not enough. We need to have one more condition to restrict all of these cases. Now, the second condition which we should consider will be something like user ID end date should be greater than equal to user ID 2 start date. So both of these conditions will help us to identify whether or not there is overlap into the subscription date range for any of the users, and that is how we will mark as 1 or 0 if there is a overlap for these particular users. So I'll just go to my SQL Server Management Studio where I check this. Select star from table 10. So you can see we have the user ID, start date and end date. We implement this logic which I've explained into the Excel sheet. I'll be joining this particular table with itself. So I'll just write here A. I'll get the A dot user ID, A dot start date, A dot end date. Really, let us get the same information for all the columns into the table B, which is this particular table itself. So I'll just copy this info. B dot start date, B dot end date from table. Left join table B on. So what are the conditions on which I'll be doing a left join? So I've explained into the Excel sheet the two conditions. I'll just copy this. So instead of U2 it will be B, instead of U1 it will be A, U1 it will be A, U2 it will be B, end will be end date, start will be start date. Now, is this joining conditions enough to solve this particular problem? The answer is no. We need to have one more information while joining. So whenever we are joining, do we need to compare the same user start date and end date? Definitely no. So we need to compare with the other users. So when we are joining, we need to have a particular condition which will look something like A dot user ID should not be equal to B dot user ID. Let us execute this code here. Okay, so you can see we have got wherever the records were matching the joining conditions met, we have got a particular data here, you can see, and wherever it was not matching, we are not getting the desired record. So friends, now here from here we want to go and get this particular output where whenever for a particular user ID it is matching with any other user ID, we are giving the output as 1, and whenever it is not matching, we are giving the output at 0. So what should be the logic which we should be applying here? This output, I'll copy paste this here, and I'll help you explain like how should we go about solving this particular problem. So this is the user ID present here, and this is the information of the users who have been matching. So let us consider all of these user IDs as separate groups. We'll do one thing, we'll delete this because this is not required. And this is the matching user ID. We're only concerned with these two columns. Now from here, let us consider all of these separate users as groups. So for user ID as 1, for user ID as 2, for user ID as 3, and for user ID as 4. So all of these are different groups which we can consider will be making here. Okay. So into all of these groups, write a particular condition of using aggregates in case when statement. So I will write a case when statement. So case when the MUID column is not null, then 1, else 0. So all of these will be 1 because they are not null, and this is null, so it will be 0. Right here, select user ID. Now before that, I'll just write here a dot user ID and b dot user ID, and I'll execute this code. So we have got the two necessary columns. I'll write here user ID case when BID is null, then 0, else 1, and as what was the column name which we need to give? The column name is overlap from, let's rename this as C. And at the last, because we are forming the groups, so we'll have to write the group by, and into which column do we need to group by? So we need to group by under the basis of the user ID column. Rename this as ID. Let us execute this particular code. Okay, so my bad. So we need to give aggregate here, aggregate function, because we are using the group by condition. So I'll use the aggregate of minimum. Let us execute this. So you can see we have got our respective information. So wherever the user was having, the information was not matching, we are getting a 0, and whenever the information was matching, we are getting a 1. Friends, this is how we have solved this particular problem. So we are getting exactly the same result which we wanted, user ID and whether the dates are being overlapped by any other user or not. So this was pretty much hard little problem with, we need to think about the logic or how you'll be solving this particular problem. So you need to rewatch this video and try to implement the same logic which I've applied and explained here on your own, and that will help you. To the next problem here. Problem says write an SQL query that will for each a date ID and make name return the number of distinct lead IDs and the distinct partner IDs. So this is a kind of a medium level problem. So you can see we have into the column A, we have the date ID, we have into the column B, we have the maker's name, whether the maker was a Toyota or a Honda, and the number of or the lead which have come. So this is the lead ID. All of these are different lead IDs which are present here, and the partner IDs. And the information which we want to fetch here is, we want to fetch for each date and each make name, we need to return the number of distinct lead IDs and distinct partner IDs. Now this is also pretty much a medium level of problem, I can say, because here also we'll be using the use of case when statement in the aggregates. By now you must have understood how important is the case when statements, or this particular concept of using case when statement into the aggregate. So I'll just do a select star from table 9. The logic will be something like, so we need to get, according to the question, for each date ID and make name. So I'll just write here date ID and make name, and I want to count the number of distinct lead IDs and partner IDs which I've visited for on this particular date and the maker name. So I'll just write here count of distinct lead ID and count of distinct partner ID from table 9, and I'll group by on the basis of the date ID and make name because I want the information onto both of these cuts. So I'll just execute the code and you can see we have got the information. So this was not as complex as I was thinking before, but this could be easily be solved using the normal group by function. I'll just execute it once again. I'll rename this particular columns. So friends, this was a pretty much easy level problem. Let's move to the next problem. Is write in SQL query to calculate the total time in minutes spent by each employee on each day at the office. Note that within one day an employee can enter and leave more than once. So you can see this is the input table where we have the employee ID, the event or the date, and the in time minutes and out time minutes. So basically this can be considered as something like the employee entered on the 4th minute and the employee exited into the 2nd minute. Similarly 55th minute and the employee exited in the 200th minute. So these are the information present and we want to calculate the total time in minutes spent by each employee on each day at the office. I have imported the same data set into my SSMS. I'll simply execute the code and I'll do a select star from table 8. Now we want to get the information onto the basis of the employee ID as well as the event day, and I want to calculate the minutes spent by each employee on each day at the office. So I'll try to do it will be something like out time minus in time, and I'll do a sum from table 8 and I'll group by employee ID. So this is the difference, you can say. Let me check the output. So employee, I want the day, I want to get the employee ID, and I want to get the total time spent by the employee. I'll just execute this code. Okay, I missed the event day, or just execute this. So you can see we have got the difference or exactly the same output which we wanted. So this was also pretty much easy level problem using of the group by function into the aggregate. So let us go back to the next problem which we have here. Table of students and their test score. Write a query to return the 2 students with the closest test score with the score difference. So basically we want to get the information of the students whose score is the closest among all these students, and what is the difference between their scores. So we go about solving this particular problem. So the approach would be something like I'll just copy the same data set to the side. So first of all, the logic would be something like I'll arrange the data here onto the basis of the score. I've sorted this into the ascending order. Now here I've sorted this into the ascending order. I'm pretty much confident that the next entries which I'll be having will be the closest entries to these particular entries, and that is why I have sorted this. As you can see, 1700 and 2200 are quite, the difference is quite high. than between 1700 and 2010. Now after I've sorted this into the ascending order, I'll be using the lead function to get the next row value. So if I use the lead function, I'll get the next row's value. So I've got this. I will get the difference between the new column which I have generated using the lead function and the score column. So this will be a difference column, and this will be the difference between the lead function and the score column. And among this, after this, I'll be filtering out the information where the difference is the least, and I'll be getting the information that okay, the student ID is 2, and the student ID, whichever will be the next student, I'll be creating one more column where I'll be getting the next student ID. So using the same lead function, so 2, 4 and 3. So I'll get this information also. So 2 and 3 are having the least difference between their marks, and the difference is 90. So this is the entire flow of the logic which we will be applying here. So let us go back to our SQL Server Management Studio where I imported the same data set. So I'll do a select star from table 11. I'll execute this code. That's it, and let us do one thing. I'll order by on the basis of the score, and I'll write here select ID comma, I don't require student name, I'll just write a score comma lead of score over order by score, and this will be the next score. Similarly, I want to get the ID, so this will also look like something like this only. So I'll just copy this, I'll paste this here. So this will be lead of ID. Core has been sorted into the ascending order, and I've got the next set of results. So I'll just remove this, not required. I'll execute this once again. So after this, what do I want is the difference between the score and the lead and this lead score. So I'll just copy exactly how it is, and this will be the difference. So you can see I've got the difference here. I'll select the minimum difference, whichever row we have the minimum difference. I'll select that row number over order by diff. This is rank. I'll again put this into a subquery, and this will be the last thing which I've discussed into the Excel sheet. So I'll select ID, next ID, and that's it. And the difference also they wanted, so I want to get the difference from B where rank is 1. Execute this code. Okay, so there is a null which is present here, and that is causing an issue, because of which we are not getting the relevant results. So somehow if we want to filter out that null, so I'll just write here where diff is Not null. I'll execute this code. And finally, we have got the right answer. Let us quickly verify. So 2 and 3, that is exactly the right answer. So friends, I hope you found this video quite useful and informational. Keep watching and keep practicing all the SQL interview relevant questions which I've been posting onto my channel. And don't forget to hit the like button and also subscribe to my channel if you haven't. Till then, keep watching and keep solving SQL problems. Meeting you next week. Thank you so much. Bye.